house or face certain death. Words from President Trump issuing a very deadly new warning for Iran's military after launching a massive new military campaign in the country. The United States and Israel both slamming Iran with airstrikes overnight aimed at destroying its nuclear program, among other targets. And Tehran isn't wasting time in its response, striking back at Israel as well as several U.S. targets and other countries in the Middle East. CNN has full coverage from across the region as these attacks are continuing. We want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer, and you're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Now we start the hour with the breaking news. We're following this massive and ongoing military campaign happening right now in Iran. The U.S. and Israel launching coordinated strikes across the country. President Trump telling the Iranian people they may never get a better chance to overthrow their own government. And Iran retaliating with strikes of its own all across the region. Dramatic video just into CNN out of Bahrain, for example, a Shahed drone making impact near where an earlier strike had hit a U.S. Navy base. Bahrain, the home of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. This allows a wave of Israeli and U.S. attacks. This follows a wave of U.S. and Israeli attacks on hundreds of targets across Iran. The Israeli military releasing this video of what it says is a drone strike on missile launches in western Iran. In Iran's capital of Tehran, scenes of destruction and chaos. Take a look at this. We're told this is the square where the former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is known to live. One local governor reporting at least 63 students were killed in a strike that hit a girls' school in southern Iran. CNN has not independently verified that story. Sources saying this is just the beginning, though, with several days of attacks planned. And a look at a satellite image right now, smoke billowing from the compound of Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Sources saying the Israeli strikes targeted several senior Iranian officials. But Iran's foreign affairs minister says almost all are alive and safe. Explosions have also been heard in several other Iranian cities. The full scale of the damage unknown at this hour. Those are the sirens going off in Israel. Iran retaliating with a large-scale drone attack against Israel and launching missiles at U.S. targets in other Middle Eastern countries as well. Images from Qatar's capital Doha showing a missile fragment falling to the ground and exploding. U.S. embassies across the Middle East now calling on Americans to shelter in place. President Trump announcing the strikes in an 8-minute video overnight, claiming that Iran has continued to develop its nuclear program, warning that Americans could be killed amid this operation, and openly calling for regime change. Watch part of his speech.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels in international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with His help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
And joining us now, CNN senior military analyst, retired U.S. Admiral James Stavridis. He served as the NATO Supreme Allied Commander, is now a partner at the Carlyle Group, an international investment firm. Admiral, thanks so much for joining us. Just hours before the U.S. and Israel launched these coordinated strikes on Iran, Oman's foreign minister said a breakthrough in U.S.-Iran talks had brought a peace deal, and I'm quoting him now, within our reach. What do you think convinced the U.S. and Israel to strike Iran now?
I'll answer that question in one moment, but first, wherever you are waking up in the United States of America, please say a prayer for our troops going into combat. All of them are taking great risk. And in particular, think of USS Ford, the aircraft carrier now in its 8th month of deployment. They won't get home before a year. Think what you were doing back in June of last year. They've missed it all. They're in the middle of a war. Think of our troops as they go into combat. Well, if I think the answer to the question, why now, is the administration made what it felt was a good faith effort to negotiate. Perhaps there was indications that Iran might slowly, gradually move. But I think at the end of the day, the president evidently made the assessment that Iran was simply going to try and prolong these negotiations. I'm sure he consulted with Israel, looked at the weakness of Iran in this particular moment. And above all, you can really hear the emotion in his voice talking about the protesters. I think the president felt, and he clearly indicated in his speech, if we're going to come in and do something, now is the time.
Iran immediately, very quickly retaliated, as you know, Admiral, with strikes on various U.S. military bases and U.S. troops across the Middle East and several Arab countries. I'm talking about the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, Kuwait, and even now outside of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Are you concerned that what's happening right now could escalate into a much wider war?
Of course. And I think Iran really has two options at this point. They had three. They could have come back to the administration with a serious offer indicating they would completely give up their nuclear program. Now they're down to two. One is they can launch about the level of strikes you're seeing now, which are significant, but I wouldn't call them the full extent of what they could do, and then they could try and hunker down. Option two, if they truly believe they're at the end of the string, they could go big, and that would mean closing the Strait of Hormuz, conducting terrorist attacks, maybe against American diplomats, businessmen, citizens in the region and elsewhere. They could unleash what's left of their proxies, notably the Houthis, who could try to shut down shipping again through the Suez Canal. So they have a lot of cards still to play. A final thought here, the ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu, always, Wolf, as you know, talked about manipulating your enemy and trying to find a way out of the conflict without actually fighting. Sun Tzu also said, when on death ground, fight. I think the Iranian leadership may feel they are on death ground. I'd look for them to go big.
Admiral James Stavridis, as usual, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet.
And our live coverage will continue straight ahead with Israel's role in this major new military campaign that threatens to engulf the Middle East in war, much of the Middle East. But does Israel have the same goals as the U.S.? We're live in Tel Aviv.
The Gulf countries themselves will now have to decide to what extent they're going to either allow the United States to use these bases and to use overflight capabilities to go and further the operation, or whether or not Iran just took this gamble in the initial wave, and we'll see whether the regime is able to survive. But this is a regime, as you very well know and people know, that has been entrenched in Iranian society for 47 years. It occupies every part of Iranian society, and more importantly,
business, politics, religion, culture, it's everywhere.
Absolutely. And the way that the regime was designed and the way that it has been maintained is by fracturing the politics and diffusing it across various political centers and military centers, so that if one part of the regime does collapse, perhaps there is another one that can replace it, or somebody can replenish it. And that's what we saw last summer. I mean, the Israelis last summer carried out a very brutal, decapitating strike against the senior military commanders of the Revolutionary Guard and what have you. And the Iranian military was able to absorb that shock and then launch a counteroffensive against Israel that lasted for 12 days. There has been intelligence assessments that in this past year, the Iranians have beefed up those capabilities, have put in place more redundancy capabilities. And so the question now is going to be to what extent the United States is committed to the collapse of this regime, or whether or not it is going to try to find an off-ramp in the event that it doesn't collapse as quickly as Donald Trump suggested in his comments last night.
David, Donald Trump made some reference on Tuesday to Iran's got missiles and they can hit all sorts of things, and pretty soon, or I can't remember what he said, but he implied that that would be a threat. At the moment, in order to qualify, to authorize him to do this, there'd have to be some threat. The administration regards the authorization of the use of military force from after 9/11 as being broad enough to justify this. Most people and legal observers don't. That said, Iran is not Iraq, it is not Afghanistan, it is not Venezuela. They are a much more capable country on a military level. And in terms of creating havoc, they have cells around the world. They've got people here in the United States. They've attempted assassinations. They are a more dangerous adversary to have than most of the countries we've been involved in that have really mired us.
Yes, and the NYPD is worried about possible cells here.
Yeah.
That didn't happen last spring when Israel and the U.S. attacked Iran, so we'll see what happens now. I don't want to alarm people, but this is a country with 3 times the population of Venezuela. It's twice the size of Venezuela, and this is exponentially bigger in terms of the goal, which is to bring down the regime. I want to bring up one personal thing. Yesterday, I actually met with the Omani foreign minister who had flown from the talks in Geneva where he was moderating this himself, and then because he had a chance to meet with J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
He came direct from the White House, met him in the hotel. He was excited. He thought that the meeting with Vance had gone well. And then he didn't, he talked to me alone, and then on camera said the Iranians were offering a better deal than the one that Obama had years ago, lower enrichment levels, and also that the Iranians were offering access to American companies to oil, gas, and rare earth minerals. This was clearly designed as a deal that would play to President Trump. He'd gotten a better deal than Obama. And so he was hopeful, and he just tweeted this morning, and I just give him credit because he got on the plane to Geneva, flew all night, went to this meeting, and he was actually flying back out. And he says this morning, "I am dismayed. Active and serious negotiations have yet again been undermined. Neither the interests of the United States nor the cause of global peace are well served by this, and I pray for the innocents who will suffer, and I urge the United States not to get sucked in further."
Eamon, you have got some video, and we have got some reporting from the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates Minister of Defense has now said that they are intercepting, or have been intercepting, another wave of incoming missiles from Iran. This is Dubai we're looking at. I believe this is video you got that you've given us.
Yeah, and you can clearly see Burj Khalifa, one of the most recognizable buildings in the world, the tallest building in the world. Not too far away from that is what is known as DFIC, which is the Dubai Financial International Center. It's Dubai's Wall Street, if you will. A lot of major international corporations are based there. A lot of banks are based there. And so that is, a sign that perhaps a missile has gotten through. I mean, obviously the United Arab Emirates has been intercepting a lot of missiles, but one of the major concerns has been the race against time, if you will, which is the Iranian capabilities with the ballistic missiles that they have to launch at multiple countries simultaneously, and these countries' ability to replenish what they have in terms of interceptors such as THAAD or the Patriot missile system to shoot down some of these incoming missiles. It's a race against time, right? Because if these batteries that the United States has supplied all across the Gulf as well as to Israel run out before they're able to get more into the theater of operations, and the Iranians are still launching these missiles, at some point these systems are going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to see a lot more potential casualties if these missiles get through. This is a very dense population area that we're talking about here in downtown Dubai. And again, you're talking about a country that has a population of about 11 million people in the United Arab Emirates. Dubai, obviously the largest. Out of those, I think close to 7 million, maybe, population residents in Dubai. So this has been a major concern from a lot of the Arab countries that I've spoken to over the course of the last several months, which is the United States has the power to overwhelm the Iranian regime, has the potential to collapse the regime, but to what extent will the United States provide a blanket of support to all of these countries that are now about to receive all of this income? And it seems the priority has been put right now on defending the state of Israel, which is directly involved in the military operations. But Iran is not making that distinction. Iran is now saying, we will respond to anywhere there are American troops on the ground. And as we know, there are thousands of American troops in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates, and in Qatar.
It's important to note that Iran is one of the world's foremost manufacturers of drones. We've seen it in Ukraine, and they do tend to overwhelm the missile and interception systems because you can throw a lot of drones at one missile, and the missile's got to figure out how do you attack 20 incoming drones. Ali Vitali, you've got some news?
Well, I'm just listening to the conversation that you're having, and I think as someone who's covered Trump for so long and been on the campaign trail with him in 15 and 16, he was the first person to try to say, well, I was against the Iraq War when everyone else in my party and in this country seemed to be for it. I mean, he really staked that as a position, and I think it's been so interesting, fascinating, and clearly important to watch the ways that in this second iteration of his administration, he is being pulled more to a neoconservative, traditional worldview of Republicans espoused by people like his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, more than he is staying in line with the non-interventionist MAGA policy that he himself was the standard bearer for, and that frankly his vice president, J.D. Vance, and David sort of scratched at this, that Vance has pushed for. Like, Vance bought into the MAGA ideology of America first, being America not entangled. And there's plenty of reasons to criticize that when it comes to the way that this administration has not been a clear ally to Ukraine in ending the Ukraine-Russia war, right? There's plenty of different examples of that. But I think that in a situation like this, it's fascinating to watch which pole of the administration is pulling the president into conflict that does seem like it is opposite to a worldview that he has espoused for many decades. And as I'm watching the coverage this morning, it's just the thing that I keep thinking about, and the ways that this second Trump administration is different and more willing to be dangerous and active on the world stage.
It's interesting that they're in two they've got one foot in either camp. We're not interventionists, and we want the Nobel Peace Prize. But at the same time, this is now the 8th or 9th, depending on how you count it, country that the U.S. has launched missiles at or bombs on since the beginning of the Trump administration. All right, thanks for now to MSNOW's Ayman Mohidin, David Roden, Ali Vitali. We're going to stay with them throughout the show, and we're going to continue to follow this breaking news. We're seeing Iranian retaliation against Israel and U.S. bases in the region in real time. We will go live to Dubai, where we have seen missiles from Iran intercepted, and we've apparently seen one that has at least struck a target in Dubai. The airspace there has been closed as well. We'll continue the story on the other side.